Here with Kevin McMullan, ABCA Marines Division I Assistant Coach of the Year. He's in his 22nd season at UVA. I can't believe I just said that. But with the Braves, ECU, St. John's, but IU Pennsylvania Hall of Famer. Mac, you and I go way back to the old days, so thanks for jumping on with me.
Yeah, right. Thanks for having me. Excited to talk some ball.
Fitting that the Marines sponsor this award because this is Veterans Day. So, I don't know your thoughts on the Marines, but they've done a lot for me and my family.
Well, I think it's America's heroes. I think anyone that could sacrifice for us to live free is incredibly impressive. And I don't know if I'd have the guts to be a Marine, but I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm thankful and grateful that they are providing our safety all around the world.
How'd you get hooked up with Ed Blankmeyer?
Ed Blankmeyer, I was at a wedding. I was the head coach at IUP. I was at a wedding of one of his former players, Mike Lamatola, a buddy of mine I grew up with. And I had a chance to talk to Ed Blankmeyer's father-in-law, Mike Shepard, at the wedding. And I just sort of said, "Hey, listen, I know your son-in-law's got a job open. I'm going in there tomorrow to interview for the job. Can you give me any tips?" So Shep goes, "Hey, just tell him, be truthful with him, and tell him let's get it going." So I interviewed with Blanky the Monday after a Sunday or Saturday night wedding. I met with him in New York City on Monday. He had interviewed 15 or 20 guys already. Didn't hire anybody, so I was looking to get a little mentorship and be around good people. And everyone I've talked to about Eddie was like, "Hey, man, he's the best of the best. He knows this space, in the New Jersey, New York, Eastern Pennsylvania, New England area as good as anybody." And no one ever said a bad word about him. Anyone I talked to, from a former player to a former guy that coached with him or was in the coaching business. So that's how I started with Blanks, and great mentor of mine. First mentor I really had as a baseball coach, and it was incredible guy to start with.
How'd you know it was time to leave IUP?
Well, I think I was 24 at the time, or 25, and just felt like if I stayed there, 3 or 4 more years, I would have the structure in place to probably never leave. And I had aspirations to be a head coach at the Division I level by the time I was 35. And I was just moving in that direction. And again, I had a lot of mentorship in football. I coached football for a little bit, but baseball was my calling. I love what I do. And I thought my football could help my baseball. And I just thought it was time to get out of there. I did what I could do in the 3 years I was there. And just looked forward to getting bigger and better challenges.
In our time when you were at ECU and I was at JMU, you always came across as a football coach, and I mean that in the best way possible. It just the way that you were structured and how you did things, it always had a football vibe to it.
Yeah, I grew up in a football household. My dad was an NFL player. Football was the sport in my house. Baseball was the fun piece. So I just had that kind of structure that, the discipline. You got to wake up in the morning, you got to do things to be prepared for the day. And, football does that for you, the lower levels, things are so different now at the youth level than they were when we were, growing up. So football had the most structure, and that's what I gravitated to. And I still structure our practices this way. It's breakdown by periods, it's minutes, it's, efficient, it's what we're going to do. And when that period's done, we move to the next period. And I learned a lot of that stuff from football.
And you said Ed was really your first baseball mentor. What were some things that stuck out about his mentorship?
I think the most impressive thing, after being there a couple of weeks is, you get frustrated. You want them to do it, the first time you teach it. He says, "Hey, listen, just slow down. It'll come to them. You're telling them the same thing every day. You're sharing the right things. Everybody's clock's a little bit different, so have a little bit more patience. This is not football. No one's going to die if they get hit in the side of the head or anything like that." He said, "Just take your time. They'll come through. They'll come to. Just keep teaching the same things. Keep it basic. Keep it fundamental, and they'll turn the page at some point."
And then how did you get hooked up with Coach LeClaire at ECU?
Well, I had a mutual friend, Todd Raleigh. Todd was an assistant coach there, was at JMU before that, and we just became friends on the road, consulted in one another at different times recruiting-wise. We're at a lot of the same events, so when that job opened up, I reached out to Todd. Todd was the coach, went to Western Carolina. I said, hey, I'd be interested in that space. Can you tell me about, the people there? And he said, hey, he's the best guy in the world. He's going to let you do your job. He's going to support whatever you believe in, and he's a man of faith. You'll have a different perspective by being involved with him. He treats the first player like the 35th player on the roster, and I thought that was a really special thing to be said about a guy that you don't really know, and you're going to go work with him every day. And it was one of the best decisions I made in my moving forward. I always wanted to be in the South, because in the Northeast, everybody wants to go play in the South. At that time, you weren't recruiting freshmen in high school and sophomores in high school where you could say, okay, come to St. John's, even though you're young. And then most kids want to go south. So I said, well, let me go down south, see if I can recruit in the North, in the South. And it worked out for us there, and had an incredible experience at East Carolina.
You feel like it helped you too, because St. John's obviously a different academic institution than East Carolina, so you get a chance to recruit to a different school.
Yeah, I think every place has their own unique vibe. I think St. John's, you could get the Jersey kids, some Long Island kids, some New England kids that felt like they were coming south. They had a really, really great business space because of where they're located in New York City. East Carolina had, basically teaching. They had some business piece of it. They had some, recreation things. So you got different opportunities to recruit different styles of kids. And I think the big thing is always, when I first started, everybody wanted to go south. So that was my initial, as a coach, I want to go south so I can, continue to recruit the better kids in the Northeast and bring them south.
I was thinking about this morning in the shower. How many of those ECU players are still involved with the baseball? I mean, you think about Eric and Nick Schnabel and Joe Hastings and Cliff Godwin, and that's just off the top of my head this morning when I was in showering. But how many of those other guys are still involved in baseball?
Well, how about Clayton McCullough? Just the Marlins job. He's the manager with the Marlins, right? Bryant Ward is the recruiting coordinator, associate head coach at UCLA. There's a lot of great baseball guys that made an impact on our lives as coaches because they believed in everything that you taught them. They were 24/7 guys that worked feverishly at them, and are all having success in their own little spaces that we're in here in this coaching baseball, scouting baseball, managing baseball. So great group of guys to coach. I remember my first day there. Coach LeClaire said, Coach Mack, I'm here from St. John's, first day on the job. He said, do you have anything to share with them? I just said, Omaha, and those guys to this day say the same thing to me. They see me, 30 years later and say, Omaha. And I said, yeah, that was the goal. I wanted to simplify it so we didn't confuse anybody.
And you're still in the mix recruiting-wise, and I've been out of it for a while. Are we missing some of that mentorship? I think about the amount of time that we all spent on the road together, the amount of camps we all worked together. Are we missing a little bit of that networking and mentorship piece right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm on the road. I hate to say standoffish, but I like to go in my space because my concentration levels are better when I'm not distracted. I don't know. I think, our younger coaches right now have so much more technology skill than us older coaches in this business. I'm 57 now, but, I try to listen and learn from those guys to try to make our space a little bit more efficient. I think the camps part of it, camps where you networked a lot back in the day. And, everyone's having camps now. Everyone's got a travel team. Everyone's got a showcase event to go to. So you got to pick and choose based on where you're at. And I always thought those camps, you learned a lot about guys that potentially want to coach and do certain things because they're on the spot. They got to coach base running. They got to coach bunting. They got to do it for 14 hours a day in that camp, and it sort of gets them ready to say, okay, I can be in. I mean, Matt Kirby, our recruiting coordinator here at Virginia, I remember guy threw like 5 rounds of batting practice, hit fungos, and I'm like, hey, we got this opportunity coming open. I never forget he worked his tail off at camp, and that's what you went back to. You say this guy's got tremendous work ethic, and he would fit right here. So I don't know if that's as prevalent anymore. I'm not going to work camps. I mean, we used to be able to work at camp. At Christmas time, we'd go to Philadelphia, we'd go to South Jersey, and you'd take your staff and you would work camp, and you'd meet other people, and that just hasn't happened because of the quiet period and guys not being allowed to leave campus and those kind of things.
With recruiting, and that's a good point for somebody that's just getting into it, is that what you would tell them to kind of make sure you get into your own space so you can pay attention?
It just depends on their skill set. I don't have a good concentration skill set unless I'm off to the side. I watch every game from the side as like a coach. So I try to put myself in a position where I can slow it down and concentrate. At least, as you get older, you simplify things a little bit more. I used to write a note about every guy. Now I just write a note about the guys that I think could maybe impact our program. So I've simplified it a little bit that way, but that's what, experience helps you try to figure those things out.
Do you have a rating system? So when you're grading guys out, do you have a rating system, a grading system?
Yeah, plus, equal, and minus.
Love it.
Pretty simple. Like, okay, this guy, and it's at our level. It's not at the major league level,
Yep.
So, a guy that's an equal guy would be a 50 in the major league level, but he might be a 40 on the major league scale. For me, an equal is a guy that could go one way or the other. Plus guy is a guy that I think can come in and play right away or has 2 of the 5 tools maybe. And based on that year and what we need, might be a priority guy or might be a minus guy that, we don't have access or use for in that particular recruiting class.
I used 10 through 50 is what I used. So I knew if because again, we were at all those events. If you go to PG National or PBR Futures games, that's a lot of kids. So I knew if they were in the 40 range, I knew they could play for us, and above that, maybe a little bit out of our range, but still to make that call because you never know once you connect with a kid. But anything below 40 was obviously not good enough to play at our level. I think everybody needs to develop kind of something where you can, because you go to a lot of events, you see a lot of kids where it can just remind you, okay, I did like this kid in case you forget who they are.
Yeah, I learned something from Eddie Blankmeyer because, my first job, I was a head coach. I was the recruiting coordinator. I was the fundraiser, and you just went. With Blanky, so we used to always come back from a recruiting trip, and we'd write guys on the board, and we'd write yellow, green, and blue. And the yellow were follow guys, green guys were potential guys. Maybe they were skilled enough, but maybe they were out of the area, and blue guys were no doubters. They're in our space. We got to go recruit them. We got to get in the house and home visit. And I'll never forget it. And I still do it that way, in my mind, like, okay, this guy's a follow guy. This guy's a guy we got to recruit. And these guys are maybe draft guys that we might tickle them a little bit or talk to them and get a vibe for what they want. But we were always getting that yellow guy that was projectable or that blue guy that just fit our place, and they were from the area and they respected what the program was all about. So I still use that in my mind mentally. I usually just write their names on the board. So anytime I walk out of my office, I look at that board and say, okay, this is the space we're in. We need 2 more of these, or we need 1 of that, just so it's a reference. I can't do it on my phone. I can't do it on my computer. I got to do it on my whiteboard.
Definitely. How long did it take you to get a handle on the evaluation piece where you could go to a park? I think this is a good point because you've been doing it for so long. You're going to be able to walk into a ballpark and say, okay, that kid looks like he might fit for us. That kid's a no. I think it takes a while. How long did it take you to develop that eye?
I mean, it takes time. I think, and you never want to think you're smarter than everybody else. So you stay in there, you hang in there. I think maybe now, after doing this for almost 30 years, that you could go and say, okay, this guy, uh, skill wise, he fits. How does he go about his business? Does he sitting around the dugout, paying attention to the game, or they cackling with one another? I mean, it takes you probably two or three innings, to see some of those attributes that you want in your players. So experience obviously slows it down for you, but I think one time through the order, you're like, okay, I got to stay at this game, or I got to go. As far as tracking position players compared to pitchers. Pitchers, you got to obviously see all their stuff, and you might be able to do that in 15 pitches and then come back and see them compete later in a tournament. But I think position players, it's a little bit challenging because you got to see at bats. You got to see how they handle themselves, if they struggle, do they bounce back, or is it just a meltdown? So I think there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But I think one time through the order, you have an understanding of like, okay, I got to stay and see this guy 4 or 5 more at bats.
And you played professional baseball, but what did coaching in pro ball do for you?
Uh, I would say it's like getting a master's degree, and a PhD, because you play so much. There's so many situations, right, that come up that you can experience in such a short period of time. I remember Chino Calahia, or I'm managing in Danville. It's bases loaded, nobody out. And I got the infield in. He said, no, you got an infield back. You get 2 for 1. You give 1 up here. You get 2, you're a pop out away and only giving up 1 run in the inning. And I never, I always thought it was so hard to hit the ball in the air in that situation as a hitter that, hey, put the ball on the ground. He said, yeah, but the ball's going to be fast on the ground in this situation. So take the 2 outs for 1 run. So all those little things like that you learned, base running wise, so many experiences to make good decisions, bad decisions. And, in that level, everybody wants to win, but they don't care if you lose, just as long as you continue to learn lessons. And, the major league guys that get to the big leagues are the best at making decisions and running the bases and making all those good defensive decisions. So I think it just gives you a ton of experience in a short window because of all the games you play and all the situations that arise in the game.
You're so competitive. Did that bother you at all as a manager that, okay, this is on getting guys to the next level, not on our win-loss record?
Well, I worked for a great guy, Dayton Moore. Dayton said, hey, let them play for 7 innings. If you can win the game in the 8th and 9th inning, win the game. If you got a hit and run, you got a bunt, whatever it is, because winning's important to us and this is with the Braves, winning's important to us at the highest level, and winning players need to be able to do those kind of things. So, I'll never forget. He said, hey, if you can, I said, it's good when you work, 12, 14 hours a day as a player, when you get there and you get 6 hours in and you go home with a win. I don't care who you are. You sleep better, you get up with more pep in your step, just because of life is about winning and losing for the most part.
Yeah, because you get used to the losing part of it then too.
Yeah, it creates a bad attitude. Guys don't want to come to the park. They're not as detailed and efficient. I think, part of why I coach is because of the people that have made impacts on me. And I've always tried to make it competitive, fun, challenging, when I say fun, be able to harass one another a little bit in a mindset where, you got to thicken your skin up a little bit. And I think, when you play all those games in a minor league level, there's a lot of teaching that can go on and learns. But the reality is, hey, you got to turn the page. You got to come back tomorrow, and you still got to provide as a coach an opportunity for these guys to grow and challenge. And so I really enjoyed the professional game. I just, I had a young family at the time, and I think it was important for me to be there for breakfast and dinner, and I wound up being able to do that in the collegiate ranks.
You guys at UVA are probably, I'd say maybe top 3 most consistent programs over the last 20 years. How do you guys re-engage every year? I mean, the expectations, obviously, you guys are going to be in Omaha, and you know how hard it is to get there, but how do you guys re-engage every year because you guys are so consistent?
Yeah, I would think every year it's new year. I don't think we rely on what we've done in the past other than the experience and how to manage the players and maybe set something up to improve people. Uh, but I don't, we don't worry about what happened in the past. We worry about what we got going on with this group every day. We don't rely on, guys aren't coming in the office at 10 a.m. They're coming in at 7:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning. They're staying until the end of the day. So we're not taking anything for granted. And, that's what we sell in our recruiting process, that, hey, we're going to be here for you. We're going to challenge you to be the best every day. And we got, the proof is in the pudding, but you got to live it instead of just say it as well. So I think when they can see you do it, it lets them feel more comfortable, like everybody's engaged, everybody's committed to the process, everybody's committed to be the best they can be. So I think it's just every year is a new year. You can't rely on what you did in the past other than the experience part of it, and try to win today. And we continue to tell our players that, and we continue to try to do it as a staff.
You guys are in individuals right now. Is this the best time for players to work on their skills?
Well, I don't know how many years ago, right? They took 14 more days away from skill development because they got to give them off days and all that kind of stuff. Our guys don't really want off days, but it's just part of the NCAA rules. So we've treated every day as a player development individual day as well as a team development day. There's times I sit in the cages for an hour before practice just to watch guys work and suggest different things based on what their needs are. And then every day is a player development day. So back in the day, we'd have 2 more weeks. So we'd get 5 weeks of individual skill work, and we'd be more 2-on-1, 4-on-1. We do all team skill work, and within that skill work, we do player development pieces, whether it be base running today. Our competition today is move the runner, score the runner, safety squeeze for the team competition. They'll go 20 minutes, ground balls, decision making, and they'll flip in 20 minutes where the outfielders, and they'll be facing a machine pitch stuff where they're still getting at bats live. But they also were in the cages for 30 minutes before they ever came out there, just doing their individual programming on their own, which, part of our jobs as coaches is to make sure when they leave here, they're equipped to handle themselves and they don't need to rely on anybody. We always say the crutches are gone. You're going to walk on your own 2 feet when you're out of here. And at some point, you'll be your best infield coach or base running coach or hitting coach or pitching coach. And that's our job, is try to give them equipment to go out in the real world, professional baseball, if it's right for that particular guy, and be equipped and prepared. So I think, the individual part, there's always an individual piece to talk to the guy and what his needs are, but we try to do it in team climate.
Saw you guys at Wake at practice day a couple years ago, and I really liked your pre-BP routine you were doing with the players into the sock net.
Yes.
How long have you done that? Is it still the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same routine. It's just, we might add some edges to it based on, things you learn, things you watch, people, maybe share with you. But we try to do an overload, a heavy bat type thing. Some people are like, well, you need 20% over this. I just take a donut and put it on a heavy-handed bat and let it rip, make it 30 inches. I don't want to overcomplicate it like I'm a scientist. And then we do some speed stuff with a fungo because you got to move it fast, and then some grip stuff that just allows you to stay lined up and fundamentally through the ball, and then some 2-strike stuff that, we do a pretty good job putting the ball in play with 2 strikes, and that's all we profess. We don't have any magic formula other than, hey, hit the inside part of the ball in the middle of the field and see what happens.
You think that's a good tip right now with 2-strike approach, is simplifying it?
Yeah, I do. I just say you versus ball, I think, where some people preach different things out to in, I just say, hey, fastball down the middle of the plate, compete against the ball. If it moves, stay on it. If it speeds up, stay short to it, and each guy's, I think the most important thing in my experience here is you can profess all the things you want, but if you don't practice them, they don't believe in them, they don't trust them because they don't know. So if you practice it, we practice it every day, and it becomes part of our fiber, and it's what we do, so to speak. And I think when you do that, they believe in it. And when they see the results and you can share numbers with them, success leaves clues. So this is what we're going to do. And until something's different or something can change to improve us, let's stay the course. And I think our older guys do a great job sharing with our younger guys that, hey, man, this is a little fast initially, but in time it'll slow down. And because we're practicing it every day compared to just preaching it, we're also practicing it.
I think people overcomplicate the two-strike approach. I think if you get your eyes in the middle of the plate, then that allows you to battle the edges as needed.
Yeah, I just think 9 inches both ways, right? If you just say you versus the ball in that space, it's pretty damn simple. Just stay in that, it's probably a 19 to 20 inch space, because the plate's got a little flexibility to it, depending on the umpires and the guy pitching. But if you just stay middle, at least you're on balance all the time, And if you're on balance, you'll see the ball a little bit better and, probably be a little bit more accurate with the barrel.
How have you evolved as a third base coach?
I'm using a card this fall. I'm old school as far as signs because I have a lot of reminder signs from a teaching standpoint. So I have gone in our inter squad things. I have a card. They have a card on there. I'd probably do it for 5 pitches, and then I don't do it for 3 innings, and then I might go back to it a little bit. And I asked our guys, I said, "What do you think about that?" She said, "That's awesome. Like sometimes you can use the card, sometimes you can't use the card. So maybe they pay less attention to you, try to steal your signs. But I think I have to have the card in play now just because of the transfer portal stuff, and guys are moving other clubs. I remember 2 years ago, we were playing Pitt and we had a grad student transfer to Pitt. And I gave one of our old signs to see if they were looking, and our guy runs and it's totally the wrong sign. He thinks we get the same signs. Because the guy was like, "Well, you gave me." I said, he goes, "That was for the old signs." I said, "Yeah, I told you pre-practice. Hey, we're trying to deke them here." So I just have the card as a safety valve. I had the same signs for like 27 years, and I switched them last year for the first time, and I'm going to continue to switch them. And it makes you keep your blade sharp a little bit as well. But I'll also have the card for when we play another player that maybe left to go to another school.
I loved the cards. I loved them. But we would use numbers off the different bodies, so it still looked like I was giving signs rather than flashing the numbers. I know everybody does it different, but I liked it. I felt like it allowed us to get more offensive things in play, and it was a little easier for the players not to have to remember everything on sign sequence stuff. And then still mix some flash stuff in. Like, I think it opens up a lot of things to you, and you can add dummy signs in. I think there's just a lot of things that you can do with the card that make it a little bit easier for the players too.
Well, I think my simplification is probably the most important part because I don't have a mind that works. It's pretty simple. It's black and white. There's no gray areas, and at least the card. I mean, I thought you gave a 2. It looked like a 2. It looked like a 1. I'm like, all these people were telling me you can't miss a sign on the cards. That's what they're called. We're missing signs. I said, maybe my fat fingers or my angles. I still got to figure all that stuff out. But I do like a little bit. It gives a little bit different feel for it. But I like being in it because, the reminder signs I can teach, things that we practice on a daily basis. And whether it's, checking back on a line drive, centering up with 2 strikes instead of remembering what the last pitch was. I got, hand gestures. It's a little bit like sign language, but it's for baseball, I
think you guys have been as good as anybody with developing freshmen and getting freshmen ready to play. Is that recruiting? Is it development? Is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's a little bit of luck involved in there too. Everybody's the pace of their growth between the years is important. I think, the recruiting part of it is where they came from. Most of those younger guys were being challenged at the high school at the travel ball level based on the coaches and the organizations they're coming from. So that's number one. Number two, some guys pick up what you do quicker than others, because they're coming from those high level programs that teach different things. I know the signs here are initially pretty tough, and I spend a lot of time with them, but once they get used to it, it's pretty simple, and I just think if you can have two or three freshman position players every year have some sort of impact on your club, especially in this day and age with transfer portals, you're doing a pretty good job evaluating the player. There'll be some guys that I think in this rookie class that could play for us, but we also have some strong candidates in front of them that maybe are in junior years, and these guys can learn a little bit. They can slow it down. They can get stronger. They can still play or develop, even though they're not playing, quote unquote, in the game in the spring because of all the things we do in preparation. And, we make every day pretty intentional, and it's at game speed. So I think guys can feel themselves get better, and they're not in panic mode like, hey, I got to get 200 at bats. Well, I'm getting them every day based on how we do our player development model. So they still feel like they're playing, and they're getting challenged to be better.
When are you setting roles for players?
Probably, the second week coming back. I mean, you have a mental idea, based on how they're handling everything on a daily basis. But, those tweeners, that guys that you think are good enough to play, and they got a pretty experienced guy in front of them, probably in 2 weeks into the spring. When I say 2 weeks into the spring, we're getting ready to, start being the A team versus the B team in your inter squad scrimmages. Right now we're intermingled with all that kind of stuff. And, I think two weeks into the spring, you got a pretty good idea, as they do as well as a player.
How have you guys navigated NIL and the portal? I mean, you guys weren't doing a lot of portal stuff in the beginning.
Well, I think the portal thing has been a great thing for us because, we have a tough time. We get challenged with the major league draft, some of the kids that we sign out of high school. We've had a couple years we've lost, really quality players, and numerous of them. So most time you can supplement them with junior college players. Here at Virginia, junior college players are challenging because some of the transferable credits is a challenge for us to get kid. So the portal's been actually pretty good because four-year transfers are easier to get into school here academically than the two-year kids are. And the two-year kids are going for multiple reasons why they went to that junior college. And so the portal's been a good thing for us to supplement, a piece here and there. We've done a little bit more on the mound than we've done position player-wise, but we've been pretty lucky, pretty fortunate. But we're not overhauling our program through the portal. We're still going to do it through the high school players that have, development windows in front of them. Maybe the high-end guys, we might have to protect ourselves in the portal. I know last year, we had two potential position players that we would have loved to have, but we had to wait for the draft and see if guys were going to go in the first 50 picks. And sure enough, 43 and 44, they're gone. And you wish you would have had that portal guy at the time, but it's just how the timing of it works. So you have to make decisions. But it's a great opportunity for us. NIL is, I think, incredible for our sport because of, we're not a fully, we're not 34 scholarship. I know what we can do, but we're not there yet. We're 11.7. So anytime you can supplement, a family and help them by different avenues of finances, I think it's a positive thing for us. I wish we had $10 million in NIL. We don't. But just to be able to take care of the players, we're doing a better job. Those guys are getting more, more rewarded for their work and their investment. And I think it's a great thing for the player.
Would you like to see any guardrails put on it?
I think the way it is now, it's just basically pay for play, and you have the choice, because you can be involved in it now. I think at certain levels of guardrails, just, maybe it's true NIL. If they change the scholarships and they move it to, 18 or 20 or 25, whatever each school can probably do because of the gender equity piece, I know the NCAA says 34, but that's not really practical in our world when you have, a government subsidized university that you got to mix all that money. That's the NIL part. Doesn't really come into that. So yeah, I think guardrails would be good. Maybe it's true NIL based on the best players that are being rewarded, but it's really nice to be able to help others out. But if the scholarships change, that's another way you can help others out.
And for me, it's like there's so many avenues you can go with that. But for me, if somebody's on money and they're playing, I think you should still have to sit out if you transfer. But that's my Pollyannish view on that.
Well, I'm a little bit old school as well. I think there should be parameters put on that part of it. You can't just I was a Division II player. I really went there to play football, and I wound up playing baseball and had the opportunity to potentially transfer, play Division I baseball. And I said, my football coach said, "Well, you can play baseball this spring." Okay, well because I was having a great experience where I was at, but you just there's different guardrails would be the right way to do it. So, third parties are not reaching out to kids. It's just, it gets a little gray and a little bit murky. And like I said earlier, I'm a black and white guy. I'd like to know what's going on. I like the timelines, decisions. And this just makes it continuous. And you have to, you have to continue to work. If you stop working, then someone's going to run by you. So I think it's great for certain situations, but like you said, I think the guardrails would be something that at least navigate. You have some sort of a starting point, a finishing point.
Can we ever get the draft moved back?
Move back to where
that would alleviate a lot of the headaches right now, wouldn't it? If we could get the draft back to where it was.
Yeah, I think professional baseball probably likes it where it is, and
I don't think the scouts do, though.
No, I don't think the scouts do either, but they're not making the decisions. They're just doing the work.
That is correct.
I was so used to it, right? I was so used to it being in June, and everybody's like, "Well, this, it bothers the." We've been doing it forever.
Yeah,
you just adjust. Like this is just later in the process, and maybe we need to change our windows to help our sport out, that maybe it's a later time or it's a quicker time. I think the more time you have to go get players, because of you're signing July 15th and you got 2 weeks or maybe even 2 weeks to August. Maybe it's instead of August 1st, it's August 8th or what have you. But then again, the guardrails would be up, starting point, finishing point. I just I'm glad I'm not the recruiting coordinator. No, Coach Kirby's got a difficult task ahead of him. I love to go out and chase players and compete and do those things. There's just too many entities for my brain the way it works. So I'm thankful I'm not in that space anymore.
How'd you handle the recruiting process with Jack?
I tried to put him into a handful of camps of people I really respect in our business and see if there was a liking for him. And fortunately, Liberty gave him an opportunity to go there. And so I just wanted to put him around good people that I knew would challenge him, as a man and as a player, and could obviously help him in both spaces and obviously get a college degree. So he's at Liberty right now. He's enjoying the experience. He's got a new coach now, so he's had the opportunity to be with two different guys that I respect and how they run their program and how they treat their players. So I've been pretty blessed in that direction.
Any thought of him coming to play for you during high school?
Not really. I didn't think initially. Not that he's not a smart kid. He just, his diligence academically he wanted to play ball, and I didn't do a good enough job as a dad, to make the academics the standard. I was doing my part with the baseball. And so I think he was more equipped to go elsewhere. I want it to be his. I don't want it to be, mine. I do enough stuff with him and spend enough time with him to, be a dad to him instead of his coach. And I share different ideas if he asks. or give him some avenues to go to make him own it instead of it being mine. And I think that's important. My dad was an NFL player, never really coached us. Just said, hey, if you start, you got to finish. Do things the right way, respect people, and never got technical with us or any of that kind of stuff. So I try to do the same thing with my son.
What are some other tips for parents that are working through the process right now with their own kids?
I think number one, can your son play there? I think that's important because that affects every ounce of his day. And will he grow as a man by the challenges that the program gives him, and will he get a degree? Get a degree that they're not all going to play for the rest of their lives. So those are the three things. Make sure he has an opportunity to play. If not, you have to make adjustments, and that's the only good thing about, I guess, the transfer portal nowadays. It doesn't lock you in as a coach or as a player. It depends on what your wants are. If you just want to be part of something that's special, where you can get a great degree and grow as a man, and those are all the decisions that we looked at. My wife and I, for our daughters and our son. So I think those are three pretty simple things.
You've been able to coach some of the best players we've had ever at Division I baseball. Is an elite mindset like that? Is it developed? Are they born with it? Is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it depends. We got here whenever that was, 2003. We had some pretty skilled players that I think needed to grow mentally. And Brian Zimmerman was one of the best players we ever had here. We didn't have to do too much other than look at his game and say, hey, these are areas you can improve on. He had that mindset. He learned some things here as well, challenged him a little bit physically, made some adjustments in his mentality about certain situations. And, he had that God-given skill to be able to do so, and took some of the learns that we shared with him, and, it stayed with him. It still stays with him to this day. So I think it's a combination of all of it. But you have to have some structure. You got to have some challenge. You got to have adjustability, and you got to be able to put your foot on the gas every day and not stop.
When do you know when to maybe back off on somebody, or is that such a thing?
I think based on their response and what you're trying to, what conversations you've had, what you're trying to get to, and are they doing all those little things to get to where they said the most important part is for them. And then part of our job is to navigate through those spaces, poke them sometimes, love them sometimes. Hey, you need a day off. Hey, here are three ideas or two ideas that I think I've been watching you do these certain things. And in our puzzle, this is what we want you to do. Here are two ideas, like, okay, go get set up on the inner half fastballs. We want you to hit the ball out of the ballpark instead of pushing, singles to the backside because you're, a middle of the lineup looking type player. So I think all those things are tied in together a little bit. And I pull back when the player says, hey, I need a breather for a minute. And it could be for 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be a week. And a week later, you go in and say, listen, I've been watching you for a week. You've really done an incredible job based on the information we shared. And I can see it going to work and being productive for you. So all different times, right, as you know.
How much time are you spending with hitters coming in on barrel control? It's not something they get taught coming to you now, but it's important. How much time are you spending with them?
Every day is part of our routine in our swing space and our, hitting cages that, we basically playing pepper every day. Every 4 pitches, we're stopping one of them. You take a free swing and then you stop one, at 50% or 25% based on how you categorize 50%. But every day, if you control your feet, you control your eyes, you control the barrel, in my opinion, you can continue to develop barrel accuracy. Unless you just got bad eyes.
Do you guys test for that? You test eyes?
We don't. I don't. We don't do any of that vision training, other than, 2 seams and 4 seams. And we say, is it red? Is it white? We keep it pretty simple. I think if guys are missing, and you might say, hey, do you wear glasses? Do you have contacts? Do you have, missing too much? Then you go back to some small bunting things, all those little, catch the ball with your glove, just make sure that the eyes are working. I mean, you watch a guy on the field and he misses a ton, but you see him square it up in the cage, it's a little bit conflicting. So what do? You go back to the cage and say, or you take the positives out of the cage and say, I've seen you do this in the cage. There's nothing different other than some open space. Maybe the air is a little bit different, and maybe you're trying to do too much out here in this space. Can you take the same routine and mentality from the cage to the field? And some guys are quicker than others, and I think you got to give them hope, and you got to give them hope by they can see it. When they're practicing it, if I'm squaring breaking balls up and practicing the cage versus really dirty breaking balls, at some point it's going to connect on the field if you continue to work at your craft and you pay attention to make some adjustments and little things like that. I think, if you have that continuous mindset to get better and grow, then I think you can improve.
And you brought up bunting, and I agree with you. I think it has value from a tracking standpoint. Even if you may not do it in games, I think it adds some value from a tracking standpoint.
Yeah, we bunt. You do 3 or 4 things for our team every day at the end of our reps in the cages. You either fake bunt, hit and run, you hit and run, you put the ball in play with 2 strikes, you spread out, or you do some sort of bunt, 5 slot, safety squeeze, 3 slot, however you categorize your numbers. But you always do something for the team, and it's usually at the end of your set. And I always say you got a choice to put in the bank or take out of the bank. If you put in the bank, you can take it out. So if you just go through the motions, you're taking money out of the bank. If you actually compete against it, you're putting the money in the bank. And at some point, we might ask you to do that bunt or that hit and run or that fundamental thing. And if you do it every day, and you start taking pride in it, you're going to increase your bank account instead of decrease your bank account.
How are you teaching hit and run with guys? It's not an easy skill. Again, that goes back to barrel control, but how are you teaching hit and run with guys?
Just stay late, hit the inside part of the ball, hit it out of the catcher's glove.
Love it.
Chase motion, and we do it every day. Again, we do it every day. So if they, I always tell them, hey, if you mess up, hit the ball on the ground. It's pretty simple. That dirt in front of the plate, that's usually where really good hit and runs happen.
How long does it take them to get the feel for, because it's still an aggressive swing, and it's not a fillet swing. It's still an aggressive swing, but they're just dominating the top half of the baseball.
Yeah, I think, when you teach them it, a lot of them haven't had to do it before, When you put it in a machine pitch scrimmage and stuff, they flare a little bit here and there. And then, just with reps and seeing their teammates do it, an older guy, and we're doing it every day in the cages, and I just say, hey, it's the cumulative effect. If you do it right, you'll have confidence in it. If you don't do it right, you're not going to have confidence in it. So keep doing it, keep working at it. That's why they're called hitting cages and skill work in space, just, nonstop. If you keep working, we have an incredible group of workers. Really, the last 3 years has been incredible to watch. You don't have to chase anybody. Our older guys have done a great job. We started a mentor program, 4 or 5 years ago, where our older guys have a younger guy for the first 40 days. And from a position player standpoint, and we do it as a program as well. Coach O'Connor does it with just to help guys facilitate how things work at this level, So I've done it with I want you to throw with this guy. I want you to do all the pre-practice stuff for the first 30 days, and it slows it down, gives a leadership opportunity for our older players, which is always great, and it connects our team a little bit as well. So it's fun to watch. I try to mentor the mentors, in different spaces and say, hey, these guys are doing 8 reps. They're supposed to be doing 10 reps. It's important that you pay attention. You don't just do it side by side with them, but you actually mentor them, and it gives them a little bit of ownership in what we do. And it's been fun to watch them do it and continue to watch guys take leadership roles.
How do you guys pick the mentor for the younger player?
I try to match up personality wise, I couldn't speak on Brian's behalf, but like from a position player standpoint, a guy, this guy needs to really learn how to throw, and this guy's an incredible thrower, right? This guy might need to concentrate, and this guy's such locked in concentration. I'm going to put him with this guy, and so just try to match him up for their physical and mental development.
You've been to Omaha a lot. How has your routine personally changed over the years, or has it still been the same for you?
Well, I remember the first year we went. I don't think I saw my family. I was worried about we're getting hidden ball trick, and all those kind of things. Watching video, just coming out of the room for meals, and that's it. And then now, last year the seventh time, I've got. You're never ever comfortable because you don't know the performance part of your team. You feel good about it. You got to a good space. Yeah, it's slowed down a little bit. You take some windows to go actually enjoy it, and uh, smell the work. Smell the sense of your work. So it's slowed down a little bit, but the competitive fight and trying to win, that's never going to change. It's just more so you got a little bit more time management skills than you did in the past. Like you didn't think you could do anything, and like you had control of everything. By the time you get there, the players have control of everything, and we just got to continue to navigate and help and lift them up, challenge them, and get them prepared. So I think it's just a little bit different now.
How do you handle your emotions? Because I think your staff does as good a job as anybody of staying low pulse in that environment. I don't know if I'd be able to do that in Omaha in that dugout. I look at you guys and I'm like, they are doing a great job of keeping their emotions in check.
Yeah, I think when it's about the players more so than it's about you, you got to be there for them as a coach, as a parent, all of it. I think poise is important. You can still be intense, you can still be competitive, but poise is important because you can't preach to them that have poise and then you're out of control. So I think, and again, it's about them. It's not about us. And when it's about, your players and their performance, then you can't be a roadblock in the way for them to have the most success they can have. So I think, trust what you're doing. And I think, it's the players playing the game. The coaches are just navigating, putting you in a good position to have success.
You ever think about Coach LeClaire looking down on you, getting a chance to go to Omaha?
Uh, I did early in my time when we first got there because it was such a mission for him to try to be able to bring East Carolina there. And I think Cliff's doing the same thing now. At some point they're going to break through, and then it's going to become normal for them. But I do. He's the first guy that Keith had that mission when he took the job at East Carolina. I got in there, I think the third year of his time there, and it was just we used it here. I remember when we first got here, like, don't you think that's a little bit too far out of reach based on where we're at? And I said, well, I don't think so. At least we have a common space we want to get to, and maybe it helps us navigate. We can raise the bar a little bit in certain scenarios that maybe get us there, but that's the ultimate goal, to try to get there and win. Why wouldn't we want that as, part of our space? And Brian was awesome. He's like, yeah, let's go. That's where we want to go. That's what we should be navigating and talking about. So,
well, and Brian had been there too.
Correct.
That's the great thing with Oak is he's had experience as a player, assistant, like he's been there.
Yeah, for sure, and two challenging places to get there from, and he's done it at all three places, which says a little bit about O.
Do you miss the old Colonial days?
I
People
miss
don't realize how good the league was back then.
the league was great, and the bus trips were easy.
Exactly.
Like the travel, I remember when we went from the CAA, when I was at East Carolina, we went from the CAA to Conference USA. I was like, boy, we're getting home at 2 o'clock in the morning. We're getting home on Mondays sometimes. This is a little bbit different, but yeah, I missed that 5 hour bus ride to Richmond. It was a little bit easier than, or going to Wilmington, or it was rich. It was easier.
I think about how the landscape of college athletics now. I don't know. Do we ever get to a point where football just does their own thing and then you bring more of the regional approach back for the other sports?
That's out of my pay
I
grade.
know.
Tell me where to go, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was gonna to set you back, but looking back now, it helped you move forward?
Uh, Not really. Not really. I mean, I've been blessed in a lot of ways, and I've always tried to make sure I've given back to the places that have, given me. I've always tried to give back, and I don't have any regrets. I'm thankful for where I'm at, and love the lifestyle I live, and I get to do it doing something that I love to do.
Would you have any advice for young assistants right now that are trying to navigate? You've seen, I mean, you've been doing this for 30 plus years, and you see, you're still around younger coaches too now, too, a little bit. What would you tell somebody that's just getting into this thing?
You don't know it all. Number one, you got two ears and one mouth. And again, that sounds so old school, right? But it's the truth. Like, listen twice as much as you talk. And then when you got a platform, make sure it's impactful that you can share, that it's not truly about you, it's serving others. And you'll get what you deserve because of the mindset of serving others and trying to help people.
What about somebody who maybe feels like they're in a position? I mean, you mentioned it. You said you want to be a head coach at 35. You've made a great career, really, as a elite level assistant coach. What about somebody that's maybe in a situation right now where they feel like they could do better?
Just keep working. Let your work do the speaking for you. Get around good people, study the best people, like we were talking about off the air, about different people and learning different podcasts, and continue to keep your foot on the gas and learn. Again, your eyes open, your ears open, and at some point, if you get a chance to lead somebody, then you'll gain all that experience that by keeping your eyes open and your mouth shut.
What are some final thoughts before I let you
go? Grateful for the ABCA. It's improved me as a coach, as a man, as a dad, by listening to all these different people that we're involved with. Grateful I'm coaching baseball, have an opportunity to raise a family, hopefully impact our kids, be a great dad, and thank all of our colleagues for challenging us every day in this sport to be better than we were yesterday.
Mac, thanks so much for your time. And thank you personally, because you helped me so much over the years. So I appreciate everything you've done for me, too.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate you having me, and I'll see you in D.C.
Yes, sir.